Before you utter a single word, before you bow your head, before you dare to ask pause, do not rush into prayer as though it were a mere task to complete. There is something you must do first, or your words will be empty, your heart unchanged. You must first remember who you are speaking to. This is not a ritual, not a mere habit, but a conversation with the one who holds the stars in place and yet knows the deepest longings of your heart. Approach not with hurried words, but with a heart ready to listen. If you pray without awe, you have spoken but not sought. If you pray without surrender, you ask but not trusted. And if you pray without faith, you have whispered into the wind, not the heavens. So before you begin, stop. Be still. Let your soul grasp the weight of the moment. Only then will your words rise with power and your heart be changed by the one who hears. Before you speak, before your lips form the words, before you allow the thoughts in your mind to rush out in prayer, there is something crucial that must take place. Too often, prayer becomes a hurried act, a reflex rather than a sacred moment. We allow distractions to cloud our minds, treating it as another task to check off our list rather than a genuine conversation with the divine. But true prayer that transforms, that moves mountains, that draws us closer to the presence of the Almighty begins long before the first word is spoken. Imagine approaching a great and powerful king. Would you rush into his throne room, speaking without thought, demanding things without reverence? Would you enter with no regard for the majesty before you, letting your words tumble out carelessly? No, you would pause. You would gather your thoughts. You would acknowledge the weightiness of the one before you. You would enter with respect, understanding the weight of the moment. So it is with prayer. To speak without first preparing the heart is to reduce the sacred to the mundane, to treat the holy as common. In our fast-paced world, silence is uncomfortable. We are used to constant noise, endless distractions, and the pressure to always be moving, doing, and achieving. Even in prayer, we often bring this hurried mindset, eager to speak but reluctant to be still. Yet silence, the deliberate act of pausing before prayer, is where transformation begins. Before speaking, stillness allows the heart to shift from the chaos of daily life to the peace of divine presence. It creates space to recognize that we are not simply talking to ourselves, not merely reciting words, but entering into a conversation with the Creator of the universe. To pause before prayer is to acknowledge the significance of what is about to take place. It is an act of humility, a recognition that we do not approach prayer lightly or casually. It is the difference between merely speaking words and truly engaging with God. It requires us to set aside distractions, quiet the noise within, and become fully present. Without this pause, we risk turning prayer into a mere habit, a mechanical act that lacks depth and meaning. But when we take that moment to stop, to breathe, to center ourselves, we prepare our hearts to enter into something far greater than ourselves. This practice is not about delay, nor is it about making prayer more complicated. Rather, it is about making prayer more meaningful. It is about shifting from a mindset of control, where we come with a list of requests and expectations, to a posture of surrender, where we allow God to work in ways beyond our understanding. It is in this stillness that we begin to recognize that prayer is not merely about speaking, but also about listening. It is in this pause that we realize the weight of our words and the presence of the one who hears them. Many times we enter prayer with anxious hearts, bringing with us the burdens of the day, the worries of the future, and the frustrations of the present. We rush into prayer hoping for immediate answers, for instant relief, for solutions that align with our desires. But when we pause, when we take a moment before speaking, something shifts. Our focus moves away from our problems and toward the one who holds the answers. Our anxiety gives way to trust. Our desperation transforms into faith. We no longer pray from a place of frantic need, but from a place of peace, knowing that we are heard, that we are seen, and that we are loved. This is not an easy habit to develop. It takes intentionality. It requires discipline. It calls us to step out of the rush of life and into a moment of sacred stillness. At first, it may feel unnatural. The temptation to speak immediately, to fill the silence with words, will be strong. But the more we practice this act of pausing before prayer, the more we will begin to experience its power. We will notice a deeper connection, a greater awareness, a heightened sense of reverence. Our prayers will no longer feel like empty words, but like genuine encounters with God. This pause also serves as a reminder that prayer is not about performing. It is not about saying the right words in the right order, not about impressing God or others. It is about sincerity, about authenticity, about bringing our true selves before the one who knows us fully. When we take that moment to stop, we strip away the need for pretense. We come as we are, broken, hopeful, weary, grateful, and we allow ourselves to be met exactly where we are. In the stillness before prayer, we also find clarity. How often do we enter prayer unsure of what to say, overwhelmed by emotions we can't quite articulate? In rushing to speak, we sometimes fail to express what is truly in our hearts. But when we take a moment to pause, to reflect, to sit in silence, our thoughts become clearer. We begin to understand our own hearts better, to recognize what we truly need, and to approach God with honesty rather than just routine. It is in this sacred pause that we remember who we are speaking to. We are not sending words into the void. We are not merely engaging in a religious practice. We are conversing with the one who formed us, who knows every thought before we speak it, who loves us beyond measure. And when we remember this, truly remember it, our prayers become more than words. They become encounters. They become moments of transformation. They become lifelines that connect us to the very heart of God. So do not rush. Do not let habit rob prayer of its meaning. Do not allow distractions to turn it into a shallow act. Before you pray, pause. Be still. Acknowledge the one who listens. Only then begin to speak. And when you do, you will find that your words carry more weight, your heart is more open, and your connection to the divine is deeper than ever before. Before you speak, before you begin to ask, before your heart pours out its desires, you must first recognize the one to whom you are speaking. Prayer is not a mere routine, not an empty habit, and certainly not a transaction where requests are made and results are expected. It is a sacred encounter, a conversation with the Almighty, the creator of all things, the one who holds the universe in his hands and yet listens to the whispers of your soul. Too often we come into prayer as though we are placing an order at a restaurant, rushing through our list of needs and wants, expecting them to be fulfilled according to our own timeline. We forget that prayer is not just about receiving, but about drawing near to the very presence of God. To pray without first acknowledging who he is like stepping into the presence of a king without recognizing his authority, speaking to a judge without acknowledging his wisdom, or turning to a friend without trusting in their love. Before you utter a single word, your heart must be aligned with the reality of whom you are approaching. There is a reason why reverence matters. When we fail to recognize the majesty of God, our prayers become shallow, hurried, and self-centered. We focus only on what we need, rather than on who he is. But when we take a moment to reflect on his power, his wisdom, and his goodness, our prayers shift from mere requests to deep communion. We no longer come to him as beggars desperate for temporary relief, but as children speaking to a loving Father who knows what is best for us. Recognizing who God is before praying transforms not only our words but our posture. Instead of coming with doubt, we come with faith. Instead of approaching him with fear, we approach him with trust. Instead of praying out of obligation, we pray out of longing for his presence. This shift is essential, for prayer is not about changing God, it is about changing us. When we understand his greatness, we pray differently. We pray with confidence, knowing that nothing is beyond his power. We pray with surrender, trusting that his will is far greater than our desires. And we pray with peace, resting in the knowledge that he is in control. But how do we cultivate this recognition? How do we ensure that we do not pray casually, as though we are speaking to just anyone? It begins with intentionality. Before speaking, take a moment to reflect on who God is. Meditate on his attributes, his holiness, his sovereignty, his love, his mercy. Think of the times he has been faithful, the ways he has provided, the moments he has guided you, even when you did not see it at the time. Let these truths shape your heart before you begin to pray. This is not a delay, but a deepening. It is not a barrier to prayer, but a way to enter it fully. When you pause to recognize God's greatness, your prayers become more than words. They become acts of worship. They become declarations of trust. They become moments of encounter that leave you changed. There is a reason why the greatest prayers in history began with worship. Whether it was the psalmist who declared, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," or Jesus himself who taught his disciples to begin with, "Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name." True prayer starts with recognition. Before we ask, we acknowledge. Before we seek, we trust. Before we present our burdens, we remind ourselves of the one who is strong enough to carry them. To pray without recognizing who God is to approach him blindly. It is to ask without faith, to speak without listening, and to seek without truly believing. But when you take that moment, when you still your heart, when you reflect on his nature, when you acknowledge his presence, you step into prayer fully aware of the power and love of the one who hears you. So before you begin, stop, remember, acknowledge. Let your heart be filled with awe. Then when you pray, your words will not be empty. They will be alive with faith, rich with trust, and overflowing with the assurance that the one who listens is greater than anything you could ever ask for. Motivation may get you started, but it is discipline that will carry you to the finish line. Too often people wait for the right feeling, the perfect moment, or a surge of inspiration before they take action. But success, growth, and transformation do not come to those who move only when they feel like it. They come to those who show up every day, regardless of how they feel, and put in the work. Discipline is the bridge between your goals and your reality. It is what separates those who dream from those who achieve. Anyone can set a goal, anyone can talk about what they want, but few are willing to commit to the daily grind that turns a vision into reality. The truth is, motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes like the wind, unreliable and inconsistent. But discipline is a choice. It is an act of the will. It is what keeps you moving forward when motivation fades, when obstacles arise, and when doubt creeps in. The world is filled with people who had potential but never saw it realized because they waited for the perfect time, the right circumstances, or for motivation to return. But those who truly succeed understand this. You do not have to feel like it to do it. The greatest athletes, artists, leaders, and innovators did not wake up every day feeling inspired. They woke up and did what needed to be done, whether they felt like it or not. Discipline is not about punishment or restriction. It is about freedom. When you are disciplined, you are in control of your life rather than being controlled by your emotions, impulses, or excuses. When you practice discipline, you build resilience. You strengthen your mind and train yourself to push through challenges rather than retreat from them. Imagine two people setting out to achieve the same goal. One relies on motivation, waiting for the days when they feel energized and excited. The other relies on discipline, showing up daily, putting in the work, and refusing to be swayed by feelings. Who will succeed? It is always the one who is disciplined, the one who is consistent, the one who understands that progress is built one small action at a time. Discipline is the reason why some people make breakthroughs while others remain stuck. It is the difference between those who make excuses and those who make progress. It is not glamorous. It is not always fun, but it is the most powerful tool you have to shape your life into what you want it to be. So do not wait for motivation. Do not rely on feelings. Choose discipline. Wake up, take action, and be relentless. Over time, the work you put in will compound. The progress will become undeniable. And one day you will look back and realize that success was never about how you felt, it was about what you chose to do, day after day, until the results became inevitable. Doubt is the silent enemy of progress. It creeps in when you least expect it, whispering that you are not good enough, not capable enough, not strong enough. It convinces you that your dreams are too big, your obstacles too great, and your efforts too small to make a difference. If you listen to doubt, it will paralyze you. It will keep you standing at the edge of possibility but never stepping forward. It will make you question your abilities, your worth, and your purpose. But doubt only has power if you allow it to. Faith in the process is what separates those who achieve from those who quit. The journey toward any goal is never a straight path. It is filled with setbacks, failures, and moments where nothing seems to be working. In these moments, doubt will scream at you to turn back, to give up, to believe that your efforts are wasted. But faith is what keeps you moving forward, even when you cannot yet see the results. It is trusting that the work you put in today will lead to something greater, even if it takes longer than you expected. Faith in the process is not about blind optimism. It is not pretending that things will always be easy or that you will never struggle. It is about believing that struggle has a purpose, that setbacks are lessons, and that every step forward, even the small ones, brings you closer to where you are meant to be. It is about recognizing that greatness is not built overnight, but through consistent effort, resilience, and the refusal to quit. Many people give up not because they lack talent or potential, but because they lose faith too soon. They expect immediate results, and when things do not happen as quickly as they hoped, they assume they are failing. But real success, lasting success, requires patience. It requires trust in the unseen. It requires you to keep going even when there is no proof yet that your efforts will pay off. Every great achievement in history was built on faith in the process. The most successful people in the world faced doubt, setbacks, and failures, but they refused to let those moments define them. They chose to believe in their vision even when no one else could see it. They chose to keep moving forward, to put in the work, to trust that their sacrifices would lead to something meaningful. You must do the same. When doubt creeps in, remind yourself why you started. When setbacks happen, see them as lessons rather than reasons to quit. When progress feels slow, trust that consistency will always outlast impatience. Faith in the process is what will carry you through the hardest days. It is what will separate you from those who give up too soon. It is what will turn your dreams into reality, not because the path was easy, but because you refused to stop walking. Chasing success without thinking about the legacy you leave behind is like building a castle on sand. It may look impressive for a moment, but it will not stand the test of time. Too often, people pursue wealth, status, and personal achievement without asking themselves a critical question: what will I leave behind? True success is not just about what you gain during your lifetime. It is about the impact you make and how your actions continue to shape the world after you are gone. A life focused solely on luxury may bring temporary comfort, but a life focused on legacy brings lasting significance. Luxuries fade. Money is spent. Fame is forgotten. But the way you influenced others, the values you uphold, the lessons you teach, the lives you touch will echo long after your time is over. When you prioritize legacy over luxury, you stop chasing things that only serve yourself and start building something that serves others. The most powerful and inspiring people in history were not those who simply accumulated wealth or lived for themselves. They were those who poured their lives into a greater purpose. They built things that outlived them: ideas, institutions, and examples that continue to inspire and guide future generations. They understood that the greatest measure of success is not in how much you have, but in how much you give and how deeply you influence others for the better. Living with a legacy mindset requires a shift in perspective. It means asking yourself, what am I building that will outlast me? Every decision you make, every action you take shapes the mark you leave behind. Will you be remembered for how much you consumed or for how much you contributed? Will people recall your possessions, or will they remember your kindness, wisdom, and the way you made them feel?